It's a juicy party, yeah, you keyed in. Grab a seat, drink, you know it's Jen. All right. Hey, y'all. Hello. Whew. Okay. Welcome back to Jenn Juice, the podcast where we don't just react to headlines. We unpack the truth, explore context, and grow through conversation. I am your host, Jen, of course. And if this is your first time, welcome to the family. You know what I'm saying? Ooh, what was that? My black ass missus. Grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's go ahead and talk. Okay? Now, if you've been rocking with me, you already know Wednesdays are our days, where I drop the episode or the video on YouTube if you're on YouTube. But I had something on my heart, and I said, you know what? Forget about waiting until Wednesday. So, surprise, y'all got episode 8 today on a Sunday. I appreciate every single one of y'all that support, Jenn Juice. I be reading your DMs I be seeing the episode being shared, people having conversation. I see y'all, okay? Well, there's one person that really stood out to me. Their comment, I won't disclose there. I didn't leave, they don't want to be disclosed. So, but they did say, I love that you post on other days, and I also love the consistency on Wednesdays. And I'm like, oh girl, period. Cause like y'all appreciate the consistency. You know what I'm saying? Like, be also like a little surprise too. So I'm like, you know what? Here's today's episode. We gonna do today's episode. You know what I'm saying? And today's conversation. So I think today. Let's see. I think today we're gonna talk about something important, right? I think we should talk about when does accountability becomes punishment? And I want you to sit with that question. Like, don't answer it. Don't try to defend your opinion. Just sit with the question. Because by the end of today, you might not agree with me. But I hope you might think differently based on your original answer. Right? And so before I go on, let's go ahead and get our cups. Tell me what you're drinking today. Yeah. Is it good? Yeah, period. What's in my cup? I got Cookout. Y'all know it's a franchise called Cookout. Y'all know Cookout. I got me sweet tea. And I also have me Crown Royal Apple. Yeah. Or Crown Royal Apple flavor. And I also have a bit back over here. I also got me a nice little milkshake, you know what I'm saying? I am lactose. I don't have work tomorrow. So I'm okay to drink the milkshake for those who already know. But yeah, that's my drink. I'm sipping on Crown Royal probably after this episode so I can be fully good. I'm 4 shots in, however. I'm 4 shots in, but the drink is for when I get on a game. I play Fortnite with my friends. If you want to see that gameplay, I will be going live after the video is uploaded on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel at You Know It's Jen. YK, it's Jen. You know it's Jen. If you want to see the gameplays and any future gameplays that I play on side the channel, along with these episodes, if you're watching on Spotify, you can watch it on YouTube as well. So, before we begin, wait, hold on, let's take a drink. Hold on. That's sweet, baby. Ain't good for you, but it's sweet. Okay, so before we begin, right, within the episode, I want to make something very clear. This episode is intended for educational and discussion purposes. Today we'll be talking about current events, public conversation, and like having different opinions that might be, be difficult to explain, but we all have different opinions. That's why we all unique in our own little way. Nothing in this episode should be interpreted by being guilty, innocent, or anything like that. None like that, okay? So, but this also, I do want this purpose of Jenn Juice to help us slow down, think critically, ask better questions, because context does matter. All right, just want to get that the way before we begin. Okay. So I think I want to do something new, right? Starting every episode now. I think I like doing this just because I don't know. I just like it. And I think that we're gonna do what's pouring. And what's pouring means like let's catch up on big conversation that's happening this week. You know what I'm saying? Not just for entertainment, but things that's affecting our communities, our culture, our lives. And I think that should be opened up like, oh, I didn't know this was happening this week. I didn't know this came out this week. Or, oh wow, this made me think something differently about how I might be able viewing media or news. You know what I'm saying? People avoid certain news because they think it's always negative. And so I think I want to bring that more into Jenn Juice, whereas people is having a little updates to understand what's really going on around it. I might talk about certain things, I might not talk about certain things. Most things, if you want me to talk about it, I will talk about it. You know what I'm saying? But today, I do want to talk about one story that I've been kind of paying attention to, and it's really the political debate about the LGBT rights across the United States. And several states continue advancing or defending laws affecting transgender people, including policies that relates to school sports, healthcare, and legal recognition. And these issues remain active in courts, and advocacy organizations continue to challenge many of these measures. Whether you agree or disagree with specific policies is worth paying attention because these decisions affect real people, access to education, healthcare, and public life. I also want to do this in the midst of this, right? Of bringing good news and making sure you're aware of other policies and stuff that's going on. I do want to see the goodness in the community. So if you know somebody that's doing amazing work in your community, send them my way. I would love to start highlighting communities, shame makers in the future, like organizations. If you're part of an organization, you want to be shout out, I will shout out your organization. I will shout out you if you feel like you're doing something in the community. Go, I'll shout out you. You know what I'm saying? Because we all community, so let's bring in a goodness of people knowing, might not know who you are, but you are doing something for the community. And let's have more openness and connection. So, almost to this episode, but hold on, before we go to today's conversation, I'm like, dang, how long he gonna say how long? That's all right, y'all, hold on. But let's do a quick refill, right? So if you listen to episode 7, we talked about Stefan Diggs, Cardi B, and the public reactions surrounding on the ongoing legal dispute. One thing I promise y'all is that Jenn Juice would never chase a headline just for clicks. Never that, okay? If a story changed, we're going to come back to it. And as of today, the underlying legal matters remain ongoing. There has not been a final court ruling resolving the allegation discussed in the last episode. Public commentary has continued online, but the central legal questions are still for the courts to decide. And I think that leads perfectly into our conversation today, because we watching the story unfold made me ask myself, when does holding someone accountable become something else entirely? Sorry, y'all. The crown is really kicking. It's getting a little hot. Sorry about that. At what point do consequences become punishment? And at what point do we stop encouraging growth and start demanding permanent shame? And are those two things the same? I don't know. But today we're going to unpack that. Okay, today we're going to unpack that. So I want you, right, to imagine something. Imagine the worst mistake you have ever made. Maybe it was yesterday. Maybe it was 10 years ago. But now imagine someone recorded, someone uploaded, someone uploaded to the biggest platform where millions of people watched it, comment on it, shared it, made memes about it, called your job, contacted your family, and reduced your entire life to this one moment. Now, let me ask you something. Should people be held accountable for harm? Absolutely. But here's the harder question, right? At what point does accountability start creating change and start becoming punishment? Let me ask you again. At what point does accountability stop creating change and start becoming punishment? And I think that's where we're going to go into this after this, okay? So let's unpack today's headline. If you've been following entertainment over the past few days, you may have seen a comedian and HBO host Bill Maher made comments that sparked a huge debate online. The conversation wasn't really about any new allegations. It wasn't really about a new lawsuit. And it wasn't even about something that happened last year, right? It's whether someone who has already experienced years of public consequences should ever be allowed to move forward. And I think that's where the conversation begins today, you know? So let's take a sip before we get into it. Whew. Mm-hmm. I need to give me a bottle of water. Soak my ass up a little bit. Okay, so who is Bill Maher? For anyone who don't know, Bill Maher is a comedian, a political commentator, a longtime host of HBO Real Time with Bill Maher. I think I'm saying his last name right. I don't know, y'all. Whether people agree with him or not, he built a reputation of discussing controversial. That's I'm thinking. Hope you can pick up on what words I'm trying to say, y'all. Controversial topics and challenging public opinions. And recently, while promoting Mark Price Cemetery honoring him, Maher defended in inviting comedian Louis C.K. to participate. During the interview, Maher argued that people in entertainment shouldn't necessarily face a long time or face a lifetime of exclusion from their profession if they already faced significant public consequences. He referred to Louis C.K. years of come on, bitch, get together. Professional fallout at the time spent in the show was what he so called, the show business jail, where you do something that could, consider be, a challenge, or some people would say canceled. So you be in a jail. Oh, like for instance, in the music industry, blackball. That's what he was referring to as when he said show business jail. That's the same thing as being blackballed from people not playing your music, radios not playing your music, people not supporting you, boosting your numbers up, basically. All right? Going back to it, sorry. Immediately, the internet had some opinions. Some people agreed, others said absolutely not. So, if you never heard of Louis C.K., Louis C.K. I said Casey the whole fucking time, bitch. Y'all, please don't hurt my heart. Don't blame it on my heart. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I am 4 shots in, y'all. I'm sorry. Oh, I also forgot to tell you, I did take an edible. I did take an edible. So I don't know if it's kicking in or not, but I feel something, and I'm feeling good. And that's how you should be feeling. You should be feeling good as well. But if you had never heard of Louis C.K., here's some background. For years, he was considered one of the biggest comedians in America. He wrote, he directed, he produced, he won an Emmy Award, he sold out arenas. He wasn't just successful, he was considered one of the most influential comedians of his generation. And then that's when everything changed in 2017. Several women came forward with allegations that Louis C.K. had engaged sexual misconduct involving exposing himself and masturbating in front of them, or during phone calls without their appropriate consent in the situations where he held professional influence. After these reports was published, Louis C.K. released a public statement acknowledging that the accounts were true and saying he had used the power he had over these women irresponsibly. He went down the wrong throat, the wrong spot. He was not criminally charged in connection with these incidents. That admission had, immediate consequences. Let me take another sip. Sorry, y'all. Projects was canceled. Studios cut ties. Television's appearance disappeared. His films was even pulled from release. Streaming companies ended business relationships. He later estimated that a fallout cost him tens of millions of dollars in his lost work. Damn. Over the following years, Louis C.K. slowly returned to stand-up comedy, not without controversy. Some venues welcomed him, others protested his appearance. Some fans believe he deserved another chance, while others believe his return itself was harmful. More recently, he returned to Netflix with a new comedy special, and Bill Maher argued that nearly a decade of career consequences amounted to significant punishment in the entertainment industry. And that's where today debates really began. Because not everybody is debating whether the misconduct happened. Louis C.K. publicly admitted to the conduct that was described in 2017. Instead, people are debating something different. What happens after accountability? Excuse me, y'all. So sorry. And I think one thing that social media struggles with is separating different questions. And for example, let me give you an example, just in case you don't understand. Did harmful behavior occur? That's one conversation. But question 2, what consequences are appropriate? That's also another conversation. Question 3, can someone ever regain public trust? That's also another conversation. Another question, who gets to decide when accountability has been enough? And honestly, that might be the hardest question of them all, because there isn't one answer that everybody can agree on. Literally. Oh, shit. And so I know some of y'all be like, now why the fuck, Jen, why are you talking about a comedian? And that's fair. But here's why. The conversation isn't about Louis C.K. It's about something much more bigger. Think about how often we see this happen. A celebrity, an athlete, a teacher, what's the bitch called? The policy people. Damn bitch. A change maker bitch. Fuck. An influencer. Sometimes we even see someone in our own community. They make a mistake or cause harm, and then the conversation shifts. Not just to what happened, but what should happen next. Should they lose their job forever? Should they never work again? Should they be forgiven? What if they apologize? What if they don't? What if years pass? What if they change? These are questions we ask over and over again, but I don't think we always stop and ask, what's the goal of accountability? Is it punishment? Is it protection? Is it repair? Is it justice? Is it healing? Or is it all the above? Because depending on your answer, your opinion about stories like these may change. Let's go ahead and take a sip. Let's go ahead and take a sip. And that's where, like I said, y'all, if y'all don't know, if you knew, I'm a social worker at heart. I graduated from Morgan State, Bachelor of Social Work, and Johnson C. Smith recently with my Master's Social Work. And that's exactly where social work enters this conversation. Because social workers aren't just trained to ask what happened. We are trained to ask what happened next. Can people grow? Can communities heal? Can harm be acknowledged without pretending it never happened? Can accountability exist without becoming a permanent excel? Or are there some actions that permanently change what opportunities someone should have? Those aren't easy questions, But they are exactly the kind of questions social work prepare us to wrestle with, right? So let's put our social work caps on because this is where the conversation get interesting. All right. So boom. Ooh wee. Ooh wee. I am feeling good. Ooh, wow. This is okay. Anyway, sorry. So if you never took a social work class, don't worry, y'all. Don't worry. My goal isn't to make you feel like you're sitting inside a lecture. It's to show you how social workers are trained to think about people, community, and changes. One thing you would hear me say over and over again: social work does not ask easier questions. It asks deeper ones. So today I will walk you through three ideas that might completely change the way I see these stories. I say might because, there's one theory in here that I included. It don't really make me change how I view it, but it does give me a more understanding in the way I view it, if that makes sense, right? So, theory one. Give me a second. I gotta pronounce this word. My eyes getting low and low. Restorative justice. There you go. Restorative justice. Right? And that's when people hear justice, most of us, immediately think about punishment, jail, suspension, termination, being fired, being canceled, losing opportunities. That's just the justice system many of us, grew up understanding. You do something wrong, you get punished. Get punished. Case closed. But restorative justice asks completely different questions. Instead of asking, how do we make this person suffer? It asks, how do we repair the harm? Notice how different those questions are. Because punishment and repair aren't always the same thing. Imagine someone breaks your window. One response, they have to pay a fine. That's the end of it. Another response is they acknowledge what they did, they apologize, they paid for the window, they helped fix it, they rebuilt trust. The second one isn't punishment. It restores. Oh, come on, bitch. Restoration, right? Now, I'm not saying every situation can be repaired. Some harm shames people forever. Some relationships can't and shouldn't continue. Some actions deserve legal consequences. But restorative justice isn't about pretending harm didn't happen. It's about asking what would be meaningful. What would meaningful accountability look like? Because if our only goal is punishment, what happens after the punishment? Do we stop there? Or do we care about whether people actually change? And that's the question I think about a lot. Theory two, narrative therapy. The second therapy is probably one of my favorites. One of them. I would say like the third one. The third favorite. But anyways, when I learned about this in school, I thought, what does storytelling have to do with therapy? And it turns out, everything. It has to do with everything, bitch, okay? Narrative therapy says that people often begin to believe the stories that they are repeatedly told about them. Think about it, right? If everyone calls you the bad kid, eventually you may believe that that might be all you are, a bad kid. If people constantly tell you you're lazy, you will never change, you're a failure, after hearing enough, those labels can become a part of your identity. Now let's bring it back to today's headlines. When somebody is known as the cancel comedian, the disgraced athlete, the criminal, the victim, the liar, the addict, those labels can become significantly powerful. But here's the thing, right? Because social work tries not to reduce people to one chapter of their lives, right? That doesn't erase the accountability. It doesn't erase the harm. It simply recognizes that human beings are more complicated than a headline, right? One of my professors used saying something like, people are nouns. Their behaviors are verbs. A verb describes what someone did. It should automatically become everything they are. And I like that. You know, I like that. You see that? Because our brains love simple stories, such as a good guy, a bad guy, sorry, a hero, a victim. And just to think, real life is not that simple. You know what I'm saying? It's never a good guy, it's a good side, it's a bad side. You know, it's never pick a side. You always have to look at the whole context of everything. Okay. Okay. And last theory, the strong perceptive, right? This one completely changed how I think about helping people. Now let me clear it up. You know what I'm saying? Let me clear up a misconception. Strong perceptive does not mean ignoring somebody's mistakes. It doesn't mean pretending everything is okay. Instead, it asks a different question. Instead of asking what's wrong with this person, we ask what strengths still exist that could help them move forward. Think about recovery. Think about somebody rebuilding trust. Think about someone trying to be a better parent, a better friend, a better partner, a better community member. If we all focus on what's their worst moment, how do we expect them to build anything different? Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Social work believes people often can have strengths that they don't currently see in themselves, just as resilience, insights, support systems, skills, the capacity of learning, the ability to repair relationships. Now, that doesn't mean everyone chooses to grow, because some people don't. Some people continue to cause harm. You know, and that's realistic of how people are nowadays in this world, you know? But the strength perceptive remind us not to assume that growth is impossible simply because someone has failed before. So after looking at today headlines through these three lenses, I realized something, right? This conversation wasn't just about one comedian. It was never about one career. It was never about one mistake. It's really about us. How we define justice. How do we define change? And whether we actually believe people are capable of becoming more than their worst decision. And that's where I leave social work. Period. And hold on, let's take it on here. That's a good session. I wrote that shit to the T. Thank you. Ooh. All right. Should I take another shot? No, we should just go ahead, continue, babes. All right. So I want to ask you some questions, okay? Because we already unpacked the story. We talked about accountability. We talked about punishment. We talked about the social work. Now, I want you to be completely honest, right? I want you to reflect, right? Not to win an argument, not to prove somebody's wrong, but just to think about these questions. Have you ever made a mistake that you wish people would stop defining you by? Has someone ever forgive you when you didn't think you deserve it? Have you ever refused to forgive someone even years later? And why? Do you believe people can genuinely change? Or do you believe people simply become better at hiding who they really are? What would accountability look like if your best friend made a mistake? Would it be different if it was a stranger? Would your answers change if the person was your favorite celebrity? What about if it's someone you already didn't like? How much does a personal bias, right? No, hold on, I'm sorry. Let me rechange that question. That makes sense in my head, but didn't come out right. How much does our personal bias influence what we believe accountability should look like? Should time matter? If someone harmed another person 20 years ago, should today's response be same as if it happened yesterday? Can a person rebuild trust? Or are there certain actions that permanently change how we could, possibly see them? Who gets to decide when enough accountability has happened? Is it by the victim, the courts, the public, the employer, or the internet? And maybe the biggest question of them all, when we say we want accountability, what do we actually mean? Do we want or mean, do we want justice? Do we want healing? Do we want safety? Do we want revenge? Do we want punishment? Or are we using one word to describe 5 completely different ideas? And to be honest, those questions doesn't have an easy answer. And honestly, I don't think they're supposed to, right? And before I go, I can't leave y'all without my opinion about this, right? So here I land after sitting with these topics and knowing what social work has taught me. And is that 2 things can be true at the same damn time. At the same damn. Let's get together. Okay. Someone can cause real harm and still be capable of growth. Someone can deserve consequences without deserving endless humiliation. Humility. Someone can apologize and the people they hurt still don't have to forgive them. Those truths can still exist together. I also think we become a society that confuses public humiliation with justice. You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes it feels like we don't just want accountability. We want permanent exile. What the fuck is that? Oh. We want people to suffer forever. And I understand where some of that comes from. There are people who never receive justice. There are communities who've been ignored. There have been survivors' voices who have been unheard for years. And those feelings are real. But I also ask myself, if accountability never has an endpoint, then what are we asking people to work towards? If someone genuinely change, if they take responsibility, if they make amends where it's possible, if they spend time rebuilding, do we ever make room for redemption? Or have we ever decided that some people should remain frozen and worse? Ooh, hold on, bitch. Oh, it kicked in. It's kicked in. Okay, have we ever decided that some people remain frozen in the worst chapter of their lives forever? Ooh, wow. And I got inherent in this episode. And if that's our answer, what does that teach the next person who needs to change? That isn't, bitch, gone. That's there. There's no point trying. Social work has challenged me to believe in accountability, but it also challenged me to believe in human potential. Not blind optimism, not pretending harm didn't happen, not giving everyone unlimited chances, but believing that growth is possible, even when it's difficult. I don't know where the perfect balance is, and honestly, I don't think society or social media knows. But maybe that's exactly why conversation like this matter. Because the goal isn't for everybody to listen to agree with me. The goal for all of us, including myself, is to keep asking better questions. And hold on, let's take a sip. Damn, I must be thirsty. Before we go, Les and I will end with a social work word of the week. And today's word is restoration. Restoration doesn't mean pretending harm never happened. It doesn't erase accountability. It doesn't erase consequences. Restoration simply asks, after harm has been acknowledged, After accountability has happened, how do we help people and communities move forward? Sometimes restoration look like rebuilding trust. Sometimes it look like changing harmful behaviors. Sometimes it even look like protecting people from future harm. And sometimes restoration is impossible. And that's okay too. Okay? Social work teach us that every situation is different. And that's why we ask questions instead of making assumptions. Now, I want to hear from you. Not to argue, not to attack each other, but to have a conversation. So here's this week juice question. Well, I want to say this week. Here's today juice question, right? When does accountability becomes punishment? Is there ever a point where somebody have experienced enough consequences? Or do certain actions permanently change what opportunities someone should have? I genuinely want to know what y'all think about this. Let's keep it respectful, thoughtful. And remember, there are real people behind every headlines. That was a long episode, y'all. And I love every part of this damn episode, bitch. I've been waiting for this episode, y'all. I've been waiting for this episode. Anyways, I want to thank y'all so much for hanging out with me on another episode of Jenn and Juice. If this conversation challenged you, share it with someone. Not because you want them to agree, because you want them to think and critically think about their answer in the context that life has given them to think about. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you're following the podcast so you never miss an episode. And don't forget, every Wednesday is our regular drop. But every now and then, y'all get a surprise, bitch. So stay ready because you never know when another conversation is coming. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and remember, context doesn't excuse behavior. It helps us understand it. And understanding is where real change begins. I will catch you next week on Jenn Juice. Good night.